Since yesterday was a very, very big day. Yesterday was November 7th, 2017. That it's been one entire year since we all found out that Trump was president-elect. It's been a year of Trump. It's been a year of a lot of messed up stuff in the news all over the world. And I think it's time to talk about this.
What about the alt-left that came charging at the, as you say, the alt-right? Do they have any semblance of guilt?
A racist, abusive coward who could permanently damage the fabric of our society.
Because this happened with Orlando. When they get done with us, they're coming from you, for you, and all your interracial children. Y'all are next.
I don't know what I said. I don't remember.
I have a great relationship with the blacks. I've always had a great relationship with the blacks.
It's not about criminals coming across the border or entering the country.
Somebody's doing the raping, Don. I mean, you know, somebody's doing the, you're saying it's women being raped. Well, who's...
And that is important, Vicki, but we're talking about locker room conversation.
Yes.
My question was about, is it okay that a man who wants to be the president of the free world is bragging and admits to it? And yes, he's apologized.
Yeah, well,
to
that's wrong.
assault.
Okay, yes, but that is wrong, absolutely. But here's the thing: he's not running to be the Pope.
You're awake, by the way. You're not having a terrible, terrible dream. Also, you're not dead and you haven't gone to hell. This is your life now. This is our election now. This is us. This is our country. It's real.
I think it's time to talk about this. Trump is a topic that I feel people talk about a lot, but we talk about it in a very small sort of way. And when I think about Trump, I immediately think white supremacy. So I just kind of wanted to take the time to have episode 2 of the Call Out be about what this week is, for me at least, which is a lot of reflection, a lot of wondering what has happened the past year and why things are the way they are right now. Like just sort of thinking about how we think about what's happening in our country and how that affects what will happen next. I remember this time last year so clearly because it was at the very end of me having numerous trips to Standing Rock, North Dakota. I remember waking up in the camp and you have your phone when you're there and you're kind of walking around and trying to find a signal. And I remember just sort of thinking, like a lot of people did, like, oh, Hillary is gonna be president. Like, that makes sense. The Democratic Party is kind of what America is about in a lot of ways. And I checked my phone and I don't think I've ever been so shocked for like a very sharp moment, but also not surprised at all, because I think one of the reasons that Trump became president is that America was tired of having 8 years of Obama, of having to confront Black Lives Matter, of having to talk about race, and Trump in a lot of ways is a reaction to some of that. And I remember looking at my phone and just being shocked, and I called my mother, and my mother was just saying to me, like, yesterday I listened to speeches by Martin Luther King, like I was just thinking about everything that's happening in this country and how things are moving forward, like the first Black president of the United States. And she was just saying, basically, like, I don't know why I moved to this country if this is happening, which for me at least was a really big moment because me and my mother don't agree on a lot of things politically. And this was just a moment of like utter clarity where we both just kind of knew things are going to change. And I think something else to consider is, I think this past year, America has really had to confront white supremacy, has had to confront like more visible, more proud white supremacy. I mean, I think about this past year of Trump being that we have a president who has been accused so many times of sexual assault. He's owned companies that have actively exploited people here and abroad. I mean, you can look at the headlines that say hate crimes, especially against people who identify as Muslim or who practice Islam. Those have risen since Trump has been president because of his rhetoric. We can also look at the fact that his approval ratings are some of the lowest in the past decades or over the past like number of presidents. And I mean, if we look at the violence that has been happening over the past year, one example is very clearly Charlottesville. A bunch of alt-right neo-Nazis, white supremacists gathered, and one of them, who was actually from Ohio, rammed his car through a crowd and killed a young woman by the name of Heather. Anti-fascism is something that a lot of people are really considering and thinking about as very serious reaction to what has been very much increasing violence by white extremists. And I mean, since then, I mean, we can see how people are fighting back against it. In Chicago, there's an anti-fascist gym where cops are not allowed into this space. They teach self-defense classes that are centered around people of marginalized identities, people of color, trans people, people who practice Islam, like just anyone who feels like they have a right to defend themselves in this increasingly dangerous climate. And when I think about all of those things, one thing that crystallizes it very clearly is that I think yesterday I was watching a clip from Fox News or some news station, and this black woman was talking about the difference in language when a white male shoots up a place and commits a heinous act of violence, and when someone who is Muslim or from another country or a person of color does the same thing, this person is called a terrorist and the white person is called a lone wolf.
So we have this empirical evidence that suggests that this whole narrative of the lone wolf is something that we have continued to perpetuate. So it's not necessarily the data, but it's how we characterize it. Whether we look at James Wolfe in Aurora, Colorado, or when we look at Dylan Roof in Charleston, South Carolina, the first thing that came out in the headlines was the lone wolf. And it's not a lone wolf mentality, it's actually a pack of wolves.
We have been conditioned so much to use soft or coded language that alludes to their innocence, when in reality, if we want to look at what's happening now in this country, we have to realize that white supremacy is on the rise, fascism is on the rise. And I was listening to a podcast a few weeks ago, and the podcast basically said, if you look throughout history, the way that fascism has risen in power and importance in a society is based on whether or not people actually fight against it. So I think one thing that we have to view the lens of last year through is the fact that anti-fascism, the fact that, I don't know, actually talking about what it means to defend yourself against a racist, a Nazi. I mean, think about it. I mean, what was it in Portland? Some man tried to intimidate and attack a Muslim woman on public transportation, and he ended up stabbing 2 people that tried to defend her, and one of them died. When we think about this past year, it's not that, oh, white supremacy is something that we're talking about more. White supremacy has been a part of this nation from the beginning, and the point of what's happening now is that now is a time when we can really confront it and be real about it and be honest about it and hold each other accountable. Because what I really want people to understand is that if you voted for Trump, you have to understand what parts of American history you're perpetuating. This country has been built on the backs of violence against indigenous people, people of color, black people. I mean, so many populations and countries and regions of the world have been colonized with the help of the United States. And when we think about how America, and I think white supremacy is so good at rewriting history and framing things in such a way, when I think about this past year, I really want people to understand that if you voted for Trump, I either believe you have been deeply misinformed and the system is using things that have happened to you to allow you to vote for someone who is violent towards very vulnerable populations. And that is something that has happened, and that's something that we have to talk about and correct each other on. And I think even more importantly is if you voted for Trump because you want to make America great again, or you are tired of this country being taken over by people that aren't white, you are part of the problem. And if you believe that, you are perpetuating the American tradition. If you voted for Trump, you have a responsibility to understand the power of that decision. When Trump became president, white supremacy and fascism became okay to openly express and talk about, and violence against people of color, marginalized people, is now becoming even more normalized in a country where it's already been here. It's been here from the beginning. So if you voted for Trump, you deserve America, because Trump literally symbolizes everything that is America. He is white mediocrity. He is not a politician, yet was voted into office. He is a misogynist, a sexist, he is an exploiter. I mean, if I think about everything that relates to being a colonizer, Trump basically symbolizes all of that. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any points of discussion that you want to get at, if you voted for Trump and you have disagreements with this argument, comment below. If you agree with parts of my argument, tell me what you've experienced over this past year that's made you realize that America is shifting and changing in a way that deserves to be paid attention to, and in a way that requires us to maybe form anti-fascist gyms or have conversations about white supremacy, or conversations about what role government plays when your government actually turns against you in a very extreme and overt way. So thank you for watching The Call Out episode 2. There's more of these to come. As you can see, my video quality is a little bit better. I'm recording this on the Canon G7X Mark II, which is all thanks to the grant that I got from GLAAD. So if you want to check out those 2 videos from San Francisco, I will put a card up here somewhere, or I will put those in the link below. Thank you for watching.